are timbales. This is the instrument that I play. My parents came from Puerto Rico, naturally, and they lived in Brooklyn. Most of the Puerto Ricans that came at that time, in the 20s, and all that, they came by Brooklyn. It took them 5 days to get here on the boat, and but eventually, anyway, they extended themselves all over New York. But my parents moved to New York City, Manhattan. We call it El Barrio. That was the neighborhood, but most of the Puerto Rican people lived there. I gained my experience because musicians have to gain their experience playing out in the street. It's very important. You can study in a university, a conservatory of music, a music school, whatever. You learn how to read music, naturally, and all that. But then, for you to pay your dues, really, get out there and learn, you have to really go into jam sessions and things like that. And I grew up with that type of training, and that was very important. Exposed to that kind of music, either jazz or Latin, right in the neighborhood. So that's what helped me a lot for my future, naturally. Of course, then I worked with the Jose Curbelo Orchestra. It was a very famous Cuban pianist here in New York, had a wonderful band. And then I played with Pupi Campo, who was a very big name here. And these bands, I was like their steady drummer all the time. Of course, before the war years, the main band, my mentor, which I really got into, was the Machito Orchestra. Now, Machito Orchestra was the most advanced, I would call it Latin jazz now, but at the time we didn't use that name. But it was a big band, naturally, under the direction of his brother-in-law, Mario Bausa, who was an excellent jazz musician, arranger, saxophone, trumpet player. Played with Cap Calloway's band for years, Chick Webb, all these big jazz orchestras. And he was the leader of the Machito Orchestra. And he was one of my mentors. Taught me a lot about playing, performing, rehearsing bands. Cause I worked with Machito for quite a few years. I must have been about 13 or 14 years old. I was already playing with Machito. And by the time I was 16, then the war came around and I was drafted to the war service, and that's when I left the Machito Orchestra. Now today it's all over the world, naturally. The recognition of Latin music is going big. I've been 14 times in Japan already, and Australia, and all over Europe. So our music is really getting exposure today because people love it. We have no bilingual problems anymore. People love our rhythms, and that's what they dance to. The percussion, the rhythm. They don't dance to a flute player or violin player. They dance to the conga drum, the bongo drum, the cowbell, the timbales. That's what people really dance to. So that's why the music is becoming very, very, very popular and exciting. With all this kind of beginning, I was involved there too. So I was learning at the same time there about my instruments, how to play it. And I was more or less a role model to the other young guys that were coming up along, see? And my role model was naturally Montesino, the man with the Happy Boys, because he was a typical player. He taught me a lot of the Cuban way of playing a danzón, real typical rhythms. And through that experience and playing out in the streets and studying, that's how I developed my own style of playing timbales. Which then throughout the years later I developed more and more, and I did percussion albums, and the young people were really into percussion, and that's where I am today. At the beginning of my recording career, I started with the company, Chico Records. They were very popular at the time, and they were into the music, the real good mambo music that we used to play. And the president, George Goldner, loved Latin music, and he was a good dancer too. and he used to hang out around with us a lot at the Palladium Ballroom, and was really into the music. He loved it. He used to take off and loved it. So he was the man responsible really for starting off my career recording-wise. Of course, Santana was a very important part of my life too, because he recorded one of my tunes, and he gave me credit as a composer too, which is Oye Como Va. And it's an internationally known tune all over the world in different languages and all that. Everybody's played that tune. And if you don't play that tune in your repertoire, that means you're not into nothing. And Santana, he just got a Lifetime Achievement Award in Washington, D.C. at the caucus. And he played Oye Como Va with us. It was indeed a thrill for me. And I thanked him so much because every time he plays Oye Como Va, I get a royalty check.